Let me take you back. It's the late 90s, Pokemon is all the rage, the N64 is the greatest thing ever. It makes sense that eventually they'd come together, right? Well, they did alright, in the form of Pokemon Snap.
64気ままに暮らす野生のポケモンたち逃げたり隠れたり懐いたりこっちだよ俺おその時私は猛烈に感動していた
任天堂64ポケモンスナップ
お夢か
The premise is simple enough. Take pictures of Pokemon. Wow, that sounds lame, says a random 6-year-old. Until that 6-year-old walks into Blockbuster and finds a weird contraption unlike anything he's seen before, with other kids crowding around it. They're showing off printed pictures like they show off Pokemon cards on the playground. It's here that 6-year-old finds out that actually photographing Pokemon is just as fun as battling with them. Pokemon Snap was released on March 21st, 1999 in Japan. It was developed by HAL Laboratory, famous for Kirby, but also had some Pokemon experience by this point with Pokemon Stadium, not that one. Snap was originally planned for an N64 disc drive release, but like so many games, was put on a cartridge for retail release. HAL wasn't chosen to make this game because of their experience with Pokemon. In fact, this game wasn't even supposed to be a Pokemon game at all. HAL originally began development on a game known as Jak and the Beanstalk, most likely named after the fairy tale. The development team was named Jak and Beans, which can be seen in the opening credits of Pokemon Snap. And so while Snap is mostly based on Jak and the Beanstalk, other elements went into other games apparently, like the cancelled Mother 3 for N64 or even Majora's Mask. We can credit this shift in direction to the sudden explosion in the popularity of Pokemon both in Japan and worldwide. Jak and the Beanstalk grew stagnant, and shifting it to a Pokemon game was thought of as a way to revitalize the project. Satoru Iwata recalled in 2010, originally Pokemon Snap for the Nintendo 64 system wasn't a Pokemon game, but rather a normal game in which you took photos, but the motivation for playing the game wasn't clear. We wondered what players would enjoy taking pictures of, and later on we made a somewhat focused switch to taking pictures of Pokemon. While the 64 DD development continued post-Pokemon Shift, when it was clear that that wasn't going anywhere either, the game shifted to cartridge form, and the rest, as they say, is history. Now for me personally, I remember Pokemon Snap being huge when it first came out. I was definitely skeptical because I already had an idea in my head of what Pokemon was, but as time went on, it became so that anything Pokemon related would do and I would end up loving the game. But looking back, I wasn't sure if this was just because I was caught up in the sweet Pokemon hype of the late 90s and early 2000s, or if the game was actually engaging and really that good. So you start off your journey as Todd Snap, or just Toru in Japanese, which comes from the verb toru, which is used when saying a phrase like shashi no toru. You have him and Professor Oak as your only supporting character in the game, and here he'll help guide you on your journey through Pokemon Island. Yeah, okay, sure, it's not the most inspired of names, but it's what's on the island that counts, right? In total, you'll be traveling through 7 levels in the game, with one in particular being a secret level. Technically not on the island, but we'll get to that later. You'll be able to go out and find 62 Pokemon here, which is a bit of a bummer to be honest. You'd hope that for an N64 game they'd be able to fit all of the Pokemon on here, especially since there are times when a few Pokemon show up more than once. Now of course I get it, it's nice to go out and get different angles of the Pokemon, but if you were hoping for a full set, you'll be disappointed. So what about the gameplay itself? It's simple, very simple, but I think it's a lot of fun. You move around, get into camera mode with Z, and you snap with A. I went through the game and got most of the Pokemon save for a few evolutions which can be triggered through certain actions. Once you get through a level, you pick the best of your photos to show off to Professor Oak. Be careful because you can only pick one photo for each Pokemon to show him. When you take them to Oak, you'll be judged on things like the pose, technique, how close the Pokemon is, and depending on the circumstance, a special pose, and also if there's more of the same Pokemon around. I've never gotten more than 2 times for technique, so I'm not even sure if you can go higher than that or not. There's something strangely cathartic about this game. It's very relaxing, it's not really high stress, and it's a lot of fun. If you miss a Pokemon and make a mistake, no worries. You can leave the level if you want, or start from the beginning. It is on rails, so you don't have free movement, although later in the game it does give you the option to speed along if you want to. And speaking of speed along, Professor Oak will also give you other power-ups to help aid you draw out other Pokemon. Now these can be used to get Pikachu to do different things like eat or jump on a surfboard, wake up a Snorlax, or to get Scyther to come out of the tall grass. These items add to the replayability of each level, and you're not going to beat everything on your first go round because technically you can't. The levels themselves are standard fare. You get a beach, a tunnel, a volcano, a river, a cave, and a valley, which is another water-based level. In the last level, you're up in the Rainbow Cloud, which looks more like space actually. Here you can have a showdown, which is the best way to describe it I guess, with the legendary Pokemon, Mew, aka the second GOAT Pokemon behind Mewtwo. It's only him here and you have multiple chances to get the best picture possible. So my biggest complaint here is, I wish the game was longer actually and offered a few more levels. While the design of them is fine and I think they're a lot of fun to go through a few times, I think that maybe 10 to 12 levels would have been much better. Now apparently there was at least one more level planned, as a track called Fantastic Horror goes unused. A real shame because it actually sounds great. And there's also another track for a boss apparently, but this is a little strange because there aren't any bosses in the game. It really makes you wonder what kind of changes happened before the final product was released. I think being able to include at least 100 of the original 151 Pokemon would have been fine too. I know it's hard to include too much, and I'm sure there was technical limitations at play. I'd imagine if we got this on the 64DD, we might have seen a fuller game, possibly with all of the Pokemon. Now, granted, I did go into this game knowing how to draw out most of the evolutions and to get to certain secret areas, but if you go in fresh, I think it's still pretty easy to figure out after a few runs, especially if you have some Pokemon knowledge. It's not really too long of a game, it can be beaten in about a day or two, I think. Now, of course, as always, I played through the Japanese version, and this time there aren't many differences to talk about, outside of the obvious. Most Pokemon voices are different. Professor Oak is Dr. Okido, the menus have this different font, but that's about it. So, the million-dollar question is Pokemon Snap worth revisiting after all of these years? Well, first, I have to say I haven't played the new one yet, so I can't compare them, of course. But I'm assuming that the new one will have much more content, so we'll just have to see. And honestly, the price isn't so bad, especially when comparing to other games for the N64. It goes for about 20 or 30 bucks from what I've seen online, and if you can and don't mind the language difference, try to get the Japanese version. Like I mentioned, it's nearly identical and it goes for a much lower price, even amongst international sellers. I got mine for about 500 yen, about $5, so in that regard it was definitely worth it. I did have a lot of fun with it though. I played over the course of 2 days while recording it, and I definitely felt the nostalgia full force. It was interesting seeing how close to the anime this game was too. Like Professor Oak for example, he's clearly based on the anime counterpart. And this isn't something you really saw in the mainline RPG games because the anime was based on the games. And this is the same with the Pokemon, that's where their voices come from. And while it's not a big deal now, it was something interesting I never thought about back then. Now, it's not perfect, and aside from skimping on the levels like I mentioned, there are a few annoyances in the game. Like one for example is not being able to move around quicker. It would be nice to have some different speeds to pick from, but I guess if we were spinning around doing 360 no-scopes, then that takes away from the more relaxed nature of the game. Also, another thing that drives me nuts, particularly when you're driving, is the tunnel level, and sometimes you can use the booster to, of course go fast, but if you hit a Pokemon, you'll stop in your place and you have to wait for their animations to finish, which is really annoying. I had to wait on multiple occasions for this Electabuzz to get going. Also, sometimes the scoring system seems a bit strange, doesn't it? I had a clean shot of a Charizard once and Oak wasn't a fan of that. But then I got a picture of only his neck and he was all about it. He gave me way more points. I guess it's trial and error figuring out how to get the proper shots, but it's not always as obvious as it seems. So at the end of the day, no, Pokemon Snap is not perfect, but what game is? It was a fantastic nostalgia trip though. Pokemon Snap was a nice revisit, and now I'm even more excited about giving the Switch version a go. If you have the chance, and for the right price, this game is definitely worth your time. It brought me back 20 years in the past, and it was really fun revisiting and sort of remembering the hype that was Pokemon and how everyone was consumed by the games, the cards, everything. We never got a mainline Pokemon RPG on the N64, but I'm glad that we got these different experiences that only that system could provide at the time. Pokemon Snap. Go out and give it a go. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.